Hey guys, so I thought I would show you real quick today how I go about mixing some of my colors that I make when I combine a lot of different colors. So I thought I would show you my process today. So first things first, I've got Iridescent Gold by Pebeo Studio Acrylics. Nice big, nice big couple of stickfuls of that. All right, let's try to make it not fall over. So what I'm trying to make here is going to be sort of a coral-ish kind of color. So next I am going to be adding Medium Magenta by Golden. Not going to add the whole tube, not yet at least. Leave some for just in case I need to tinker a little bit. And next we are going to do Pyrrole Orange by Golden. All right, I'm gonna give that a stir. See if I can kind of, okay, hang on. Let me mix that up first. So right now, just paint, nothing else. I will start adding distilled water here shortly to start thinning it out because this will be for a Dutch pour. And the only thing that goes in my paints is distilled water. All right, it's already starting to make a really beautiful color. Let me show you. So kind of hard to see because it's a green cup, but it is getting to be a very, very nice, bright, pinkish sort of color so far. So I am going to add a little bit more orange. Now, these tubes are 2 ounces, and so far I've probably used about 1 ounce of gold and 1.5 ounces of magenta, just by feel. Okay, I also am going to add more gold, but now that I got my stick dirty, or well, full of paint, I don't want to stick it back in this tub. So I'm going to add another good popsicle stick full. See how that goes. I do want to make quite a lot of this color. If I wasn't making so much, I would use much, much smaller amounts, but I do want to make quite a bit of this. Now, the reason I haven't added, it would make it much easier for stirring and mixing this, as you can see, right? There's lots of stuff going on the sides. I haven't added any of the water yet is because I just want to get this paint smooth first. Get everything just nice and mixed together. Trying not to whip it too much to get too much air in it. Making sure you scrape the sides constantly and then scrape your stick. Just so that you get everything as integrated as possible before you start adding the water. Try and get your sides nice and cleaned off. All right. It's kind of hard to see there. So it's super thick still, obviously, because I'm using a heavy-bodied paint. And now that it is fairly smooth and mixed up and it's close to the color that I was looking for, I still am going to tweak it a little bit, but I am going to add just a little bit of distilled water. So this is just my smaller bottle that I'm using, just instead of using the great big 4-liter behind me. It just makes it easier for pouring. Now right there, I probably added maybe 1/4 ounce of water. Don't need a lot to start, right? Goes all weird looking at first. Just got to mix it back until it's smooth again. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit more water. This time I added probably about 3/4 of an ounce. Now I'm mixing quite quickly, a little more quickly than I normally would, just so that I can show you and speed this process up a little bit. I will speed the video up a little bit in editing, so it's not so long. But typically I try not to stir quite so fast so I'm not putting so much air into it, because I'm definitely putting a lot of air into it right now. I'm going to add a little bit. Now, it's important that you haven't added too much water while you're still adding straight heavy body tube paint right out of the tube. If you're using a soft body, it's quite a lot easier, but if you're using a heavy body specifically, this kind of tube paint, it is a lot harder to integrate and mix in, especially if you've got it already really thin. So I recommend not putting too much water in so that it's still makes it easy to integrate this tube paint in without it just kind of sitting in there and not mixing in properly. That can happen quite often, especially if you've got it really thin down already and you just want to add more, or you need, oh no, I need more white. And you just go and add a big of tube paint in. It's going to be so hard to just mix up on your own. It will take forever to integrate it all in and actually get everything mixed up and get it to be smooth. So if you do it right from the beginning like this, as you're building your color and you haven't added much water yet, it's a lot easier to integrate it in and get it smooth. So I just added a bit more orange. I'm really liking what's happening here. I think I may even add still just a little bit more gold, but I am really close to the color that I was hoping to make. My inspiration for this, I did a pour last night and I had 2 colors left over that I had made, the 2 separate colors, and I really liked both of them, and I decided, well, I've only got a little bit of each, or a little bit of each left, so I figured, well, let's dump them together and see what happens. And it turned out into a really pretty color. So I wanted something to go along with that to do a Dutch pour. So this is the complementary color that I am doing to go with this. So this is going to look just stunning. So look for that video upcoming as well here. That'll be out in a day or 2. All right, so we're very close to the color I want. Going to add just a little bit more gold. Make sure you are constantly scrape those sides. Scrape off your stick. You'll never get the color mixed in properly. You'll get little pockets of color that aren't mixed in. And that can look really cool if you're going for that effect specifically, but if you are not, it can be rather irritating if you're trying to have an even one color, especially if you're using it as a base coat or something like that. So just something to keep in mind. Things I've learned from mixing an incredible amount of paint over the last few years. And these are just some of the things that I wish I would have known when I was first starting out. I used to use popsicle sticks, but I've been trying to get away from so much single-use products and get into a lot more reusable. So I ordered these mixing sticks from Crystal Resin. Fantastic. Love them. Just make sure that every time when you're done with them, just clean them off right away. You can literally just take a paper towel. If you really want to get them good and clean and get the paint off and you're having issues with it, I just take a 99% isopropanol and literally like a squirt on that and it onto the stick, and wipe it down with a paper towel and then clean it off after again. Rinse it and it's good to go. That gets all the paint off for me nice and easy, never have to worry about it. And not to mention I use these for resin and for paint, so they get a lot of use, and yeah, the alcohol really helps to keep them nice and clean. Just make sure you give it a good rinse off after before you put it into anything. All right, so this is the color that I was looking for. So now I'm going to add quite a bit more water, but we're gonna do it slowly. Again, here, I added probably about a half an ounce of water there. Now, because I am using very good paints, very highly pigmented paints, being the golden, they can sustain a much higher level of water for thinning than a lot of other paints can. And that's just because their pigment load is so high. They're a very, very good quality paint. That's the reason why they're so expensive. But golden also does have a really, really great pouring medium. I don't use pouring medium very often. It's very, very rare, in fact, for me. The only reason that I actually use it for me is when I'm using specifically other paints that aren't as pigmented as, say, a golden or an Amsterdam. And I don't want them to break down if I'm doing a Dutch pour and mixing them just with water and thinning them out so thin. So what I will actually do is I will use Golden's Gloss Pouring Medium, and I will take it and I will put that into a bottle just like this. And this is literally 1 ounce of pouring medium to 11 ounces of water, distilled water, and then mix that up, just give it a little stir. And I keep adding distilled water until all of a sudden it's clear. And then I'll do my same mixture again, 1 ounce, because you can do this 10 parts water, 11 parts water to 1 part pouring medium. That's fine. If you actually read it on the Golden website and on their blogs, they have some excellent blogs, by the way, and their people just talk about some really fantastic issues and things that are just really great for artists like us to know. Anyways, they've said they've broken it down, and specifically with their paints, they've done a lot of different tests for us to show you exactly how much you can thin down your paints before the pigments start to break apart. So I know that this mixture holds up. It adds pigment, or it adds a binder into paint that might not have such a strong binder and such strong pigments as a golden. So for example, Pebeo, I love their paints. I think they're great, but they're not as strong as golden or Amsterdam, for example. So sometimes if I'm using a straight just Pebeo color by itself, not mixed with a golden color, then I will use my 10-to-1 pouring medium mixture. But that is the only thing I will ever add, and that is literally the only reason, is so that I can use cheaper paints, so that I'm not so restricted to just using golden and Amsterdam. And as we all know, golden is super expensive. Amsterdam's not too bad. Most places you can get it for fairly decent price, but golden is just ridiculously expensive, but it's worth it. 100 times over, it's worth it. So that's kind of my little spiel on pouring medium versus water. Also, I find for me, if I'm using just golden and Amsterdam, doesn't really matter the technique except the bloom technique, because there's just so many crazy things in that. I can do any single technique for acrylic pouring that I've tried so far, and I can be successful with it just using paint and water. I don't ever add anything else. I don't need to add anything else. I don't ever use silicone or anything else like that. The only thing that might go in after is the coat of resin on top, but that's it. There's just no need to do that. And if you want to create cells and you want to have all these different effects, there are very easy and simple ways to do that with just paint and water. Just takes a little bit of time and some research, and you can figure any of those techniques out. I'd be pleased to get into more detail talking about that if anyone is interested in, asking me some questions or learning about how I do some of those techniques with just paint and water, but they can all be done. Except for the bloom technique, that's the only one I haven't tried to recreate yet and do. I just don't have any interest in it, specifically for what they put in their paint. I'm looking to keep the archival qualities of my paintings and be able to have them long term and not have any crazy or weird things happen because of the odd things that are put into paint to create some of these effects. That's just my personal opinion. But hey, that's just me. To each their own. Those things, you know, adding some things to your paint can create some really interesting effects for sure. I won't deny that. Me personally, not a fan. I'd rather try and figure it out and science my way through it, I guess, to how you did that and how to do it with just paint and water. And so far I've been successful with every technique. Yes, it takes effort. It takes me a long time. It can take me a while to get there, but I get there in the end. All right. This color is coming along just beautifully. Still quite thick. Now, if I was going to be doing, say a ring pour, I might want it this thick. Well, me personally, sometimes I actually like to do, depends on the style of ring pour. Sometimes I do them thick, sometimes I do them thin. Depends on my mood, really. But we are getting close. So added about another ½ ounce of water there. So, I mean, as you can see, obviously my paint's line is growing. I'm up to about here in the cup now. So have made quite a lot. And we are getting very close. But this does take a lot of time, you know, especially if you were trying not to put super lot of air bubbles into your paint. If you want to pour right away, then you do have to take your time and mix a little bit slower. And it's not a bad thing, right? You want to make sure, especially when you're mixing your own colors, like I said, that all that paint is integrated and everything is mixed in. Otherwise you can get some kind of interesting effects with, you know, just kind of little pockets of pigments that'll pop out of a different color all of a sudden. And that's just because it's not mixed in well enough. So take your time, enjoy it. I put on music. Earlier today when I was mixing my paint, I was listening to The Art of Storytelling by Slick Rick. Fantastic. That just got me in the mood to paint and got me in the mood to make this video. So thank you to, you know, shout out to Slick Rick. All right, so you can see it a little bit better. It's just beautiful. So now you can see on my stick, right? I'll try to get you in the right light to see it. There's quite a bit of air bubbles. There's a little bit of kind of like sediment looking. That's just because it's not mixed enough yet. So you just need to keep mixing. If you're still seeing that in your paint, yes, I mean, you're not going to get rid of the air bubbles, but you will be able to figure out the difference looking at it between the air bubbles and the sediment. But if you're seeing any sort of that sedimenty look, it's not mixed in enough yet. Now, some paints are made with different styles and types of pigments. So some of them are a little bit grittier, we'll say, than others. So it can be very difficult to get them smooth. And some you just cannot get smooth. Like certain metallics with the mica powders can be very difficult to get smooth depending on the mica powder that they used or what minerals were used to make that color, or to make that pigment, I should say. So that can always depend too, and that can be part of the process. So you do need to think about that and take that into consideration, especially if you're finding you're having difficulty with getting a color to get smooth. That could be part of the issue. Ultimately though, it's just keep mixing. This does take a long time, but you know, for somebody like me, this is part of the process, and I actually really like this part of the process. It's therapeutic for me. I just, you know, sit in my studio. It's closed right now just because of the video, but I have a great big window beside me that shows me my great big huge tree outside my window, and lots of birds are out there, so I usually just open my window and listen to some music and listen to the birds. That's quite meditative for me, I find. What do you guys like to do when you mix paint? I know lots of people just pop on a movie or pop on a TV series or YouTube, or you know, some pouring videos, get inspiration, that sort of thing. Some days I'll do that too. Some days I want to listen to music, and some days I stand up and, you know, just kind of walk around my studio here. My studio is just a bedroom in my house that I converted. Not too many paintings on the wall yet, because we are in the middle of I'm taking everything down in here, and I'm going to be patching and painting the walls in here soon. Hasn't been done in a while, so I want to redo that. So kind of in the process, but that will come soon. But yeah, I typically will sit here for a while, and then I'll get up and stand up and walk around and mix my paint while I walk around. I have my floors all covered with plastic, and then I actually have foam mats down as well. Those interlocking foam mats, you can get them at like Canadian Tire, Walmart, etc. So it makes it a little more comfortable to stand on for long periods of time or to sit on. So it's quite nice. Can stand on those, and then that way if I spill, no big deal, right? I can just wipe it up off the foam mat, and there's plastic underneath that too. So I've got 2 layers of protection, and the plastic goes all the way to the walls everywhere to make sure that I don't spill. So gotta make sure everything's protected, right? All right, we are getting very close. So if you're painting, if you are trying to mix paint for a Dutch pour, you cannot, people often in other pouring videos, they talk about leaves a mound on a mound on a mound. What does that mean? It just means when you lift your stick up out of your paint and you watch the paint flow off of it back into the cup, it's leaving a mound of paint on the surface. So I'll show you, because right now it is. So you can see that. Sorry, let me just adjust here. So it's still leaving a little bit of a mound right now. Now, if you're going to be doing a Dutch pour, that is still way, 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 way too thick for a Dutch pour. So we need to keep thinning it out. But every time, just add a little bit more water at a time, and then just stir it till it's smooth. Keep stirring, keep stirring, keep stirring. Stir, stir, stir. Keep scraping. Make sure you scrape your stick off as well, all the time. Scrape your sides. That's just going to ensure you the best mixture of your paint. You're going to have the best results with it. It's going to dry the nicest, and that way you can kind of see too, is there anything in my paint here while I'm mixing, or are there any clumps that just won't mix out? Because that happens too, right? Like I said, certain pigments and stuff, they can build up together and clump up, and they just will not break down for no matter what you do. So sometimes you've just got to pull those out. So if you sit here and, look at your paint and watch the side of your cup. When you're watching on the inside, watch the side of your cup, because it'll kind of show you if there's sediment on it, if there's lots of air in it, if there's any sort of debris, you might see it come up. So you can just kind of pay attention and watch for those sort of things. And it's just fun when you're mixing colors specifically like this. I just find in the process, it's really fun to watch what happens and see the color build together. It can do some really interesting things when you start playing with unexpected color combinations to build colors. And you can learn some very interesting things that just, surprise you, and see how it mixes and see how it lightens and darkens. And I don't know, it's fascinating to me. I really like it. Now, just one kind of tip here too. You see me constantly lifting up my stick and letting it flow off like that. That's fine. I'm just doing that to check the consistency of my paint. However, that does put a lot of air into your paint. So be cognizant of that. That is one thing to keep in mind actually too when you're doing resin. We all know the pain that resin can be to mix the 2 parts together. And you've got to just be so precise with that. If you are constantly doing that with the resin too, you are putting a lot of air into it. Think about when you're mixing paint, for anybody out there that likes to bake at all, think about like whisking and what whisking does, right? And the intention of how you whisk and what you do when you fold something in and how you want to put that air in, right? Well, think about it the same way when you're looking at your paint. Sometimes you can kind of fold something in. Well, you're also folding in a lot of air. And for us, we do not want the air bubbles. So, I mean, obviously I can just let this sit and the air will come out on its own in time, or I can torch it out when I'm painting. There are ways to eliminate that, but that is something to be cognizant of, especially if you are wanting to pour right away after you're mixing, and there's not going to be a lot of, wait time in between for those air bubbles to come out naturally. So do think about that, right? If you're whipping your stick around like mad, you are going to be putting a lot more air into it, right? Whereas if you're doing a much more controlled and slow stir, yes, it's going to take a lot longer, but it will, allow you to not have quite as much air in it at the end and have to sit for as long. But if you're checking the consistency of your paint, it's something you have to do quite frequently. So just kind of got to deal with the air bubbles. Typically, I try to be patient and let my paint sit for at least a day in between mixing it for a Dutch pour and pouring. But sometimes I'm impatient and I just want to pour and I have to make a color if I don't have something, or I have to make all the colors and I just want to pour now and just paint now. Then I won't wait. This will definitely be for tomorrow. I don't think I will get the chance to do this painting today. Too much other stuff to do. I have a show to prepare for, as some of you know who follow me. I am going to be participating as a vendor in the upcoming Local Goods YYC show on September 10th and 11th in Calgary, Alberta. On Friday, September 10th, it's going to be from 5 p.m. till 9 p.m. And on Saturday, it's from noon till 4. And this is in Brentwood, at the Village, it's called, Brentwood's Lifestyle Center. And anyways, I will be there for both days, and I will be featuring pieces like those ones you can see behind me. All 3 of those will be there and for sale. And lots more, all the videos you've seen with me doing the resining in the last few days, and a bunch of the pour videos that I have put out even in the last month. Most of those pieces, if they're not already sold, will be at that show. So if you happen to be in or around the Calgary area for September 10th or 11th, come on down to the Village in Brentwood and check it out and come say hi. I am going to also be doing some ridiculous sales for those 2 days. If anyone is interested in purchasing anything, I will be accepting cash and PayPal only that day. And like I said, ridiculous sales because I want to make some room in my house. I have no room. My walls are full, and my 2 bedrooms that I am using, that I've converted into my studio and my drawing space, are both full, ridiculously full. I have no room. I need to get rid of some of this stuff. And as much as I don't want to part with any of them, do what we must, right? Must get rid of some of them, not get rid of them, but sell some of them so that I can buy more supplies so I can keep painting. And that really for me is just the honest motivation behind selling my work. If I was in a position where I could not sell any of it, I could keep it and I had the room to put it all up in my house, I would put it everywhere and every inch of my house would be covered, but I just don't have the room anymore. So I need to sell some of it, buy more supplies. Just want to continue just to fund my hobby, right? And you know, now that I'm starting to get on social media and grow these followings as well, you know, any of the money that I make will just go towards supporting my channels and growing and buying more supplies so that I can keep showing you guys these videos, and hopefully you guys like it. And if you have any questions, please leave me a comment. If there's something you'd like to see me try, especially now that I've made the statement about, you know, techniques using only paint and water. If there's something you'd like to see specifically, let me know and I can show you for sure what I do. This is coming along very nicely now. It is almost done. Very thin, so it's still just streaming off the stick, super thin. And I don't think, oh, you can kind of see that there. So it's not really leaving any kind of a mound on the surface at all. It is just breaking right through the surface and going back down into itself. That is what you want. You're getting close. Now, like I said before, a really important thing to remember is that paints that are not heavily pigmented and super good binders in them, like Golden, for example, like acrylic, like Amsterdam paints, their binders aren't good enough to hold up to this much water. So you would have to add some sort of another binder, be that glue, be that a pouring medium, something like that. You have to add something, otherwise your paint's going to break apart. Your pigments will break and you're not necessarily going to like the result. I mean, sometimes it does kind of actually look cool. So I guess if you like that look, then hey, right on, go for it and do that intentionally. But otherwise, yeah, it does create some pretty nasty effects and can ruin some pieces that otherwise would just be absolutely beautiful. I've had it happen, so I've learned my lesson, and that's why I pretty well stick to only professional level paints at this point, because, you know, I really don't want to waste them, you know, especially at these prices. And if I'm going to be doing just water, then I would rather spend all my extra money instead of on mediums or additives or anything like that. I'd rather just spend it on better quality paint. Excellent. That has just turned out beautiful. All right, now it's very close. It's not done yet, but I am just going to let it sit for a few minutes. Now this is the other color I was referring to earlier that I had combined from my leftovers. So it's made sort of a dark red with copper and gold, and there's purple in it and all kinds of stuff in here. And it's made this sort of reddish, brownish copper, just, it's really beautiful. Hopefully you can see it. So I am going to be using that. I think I'm going to do this on a white base. Use that, and then this kind of coral color that I made, and then I am going to do up a burnt umber so that I have a nice dark, deep, rich brown. And I think that's probably going to be it. Now I say that now, and who knows, because I get ahead of myself and carried away, and who knows what'll happen, but stay tuned for that video. So anyways, that is the process for me to mix one of my colors. So it took about half an hour. It's very close to being done. I would probably, if I wasn't videoing this, I would slow down quite a bit. So it usually takes me about an hour per color. If I'm not rushing, and you know, I am trying to just take my time and be careful and, you know, not rush and just enjoy the process, then it takes me about an hour per color to fully mix and fully be ready for a Dutch pour. And then of course, right, wanting to let it sit and let some of those air bubbles get out naturally. So, you know, that's one thing that people say is, oh, it's so quick for you to do your art, it's so fast. And I'm like, well, that, you know, that one part of it is definitely quick, or can be quick, and there's, you know, a lot that you don't see that goes into it, you know, like especially stuff like this, where if I've all of a sudden got 6 colors and I need to mix them all up from the tube, it's going to take me at least 6 hours to mix those colors. So, and I like to get up and take stretch breaks so that I don't get hunched over and sore or anything like that. You know, and that's also why I stand up and move around and kind of dance while I pour, because it helps to keep you loose, and then you don't end up, you know, just hunched over and gross. So, you know, just little things to sort of help. It takes a lot of time to prepare, and there's a lot of prep work that goes into this kind of stuff. But if we showed you everything in these videos, our videos would be like 8 hours long, and that's ridiculous. So anyways, tune in the next couple of days, guys. I will show you the video with these colors being put to use. I really hope what is going on in my head is going to work, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed me mixing up these colors. So in the end, I used probably about a half ounce left of this magenta, and just under a half ounce, actually there's probably about a 1/4 ounce of this pyrrole orange left out of these 2-ounce tubes. And I used quite a lot of gold, and just got an absolutely beautiful color that I am very, very pleased with, and I cannot wait to see how this piece ends up turning out. So I will see you guys soon for the next video, and if there's anything else you'd like to see or you have questions, please just let me know. All right, take care, guys. Have a great day. I hope you make something beautiful. See you soon.